thing to be part of this summit. So today's talk is conscious parenting, helping parents heal their inner child while nurturing emotionally whole children. So this is a topic that I am so excited to bring to you and to talk about today. The few things before we get started is just keep the chat clear. Just because I really want you to get so much value out of this time. We don't have a ton of time together today, and I want to really help both of us stay focused, as I can get really, I can go off track. I could lose my train of thought if I'm going over to the chat constantly. So please grab a notebook or a journal and something to write with, as I have a lot of prompts for you today. And if you have a question, please just jot it down, and I will have Q&A at the very end of our talk. So if you have a question, just jot it down, and then at the end I'll have you pop it into the chat. And so part of keeping the chat clear and turning your cell phone off and all of these things is because I really want your attention. Again, like I said, we don't have a ton of time today, and you invested in yourself to come to this talk. And this is your time to really take in all of the information and give yourself exactly what you need so that you can walk away from this feeling empowered, feeling ready to start your journey. And this is the exact information that truly changed my life. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. That's why I'm so excited to bring it to you, because I'm going to talk a little bit about my healing journey in a little bit here, but it really changed my life, and I know that it can change yours. So I'm excited to share this topic with you. And so if you are feeling like you know what you want, but you don't know quite how to get there, there's barriers in the way, or maybe you have no idea what you want, you need to gain clarity on that, but you know that what you have going on right now is it's not working. You tend to be reactive rather or more often than you are intentionally responsive. And if you feel that you are frustrated with your current parenting approach, or you're just not happy with it, you don't feel like it's the best that it could be, and if you're feeling disconnected from yourself, your children, and or your spouse, then you're in the right place. And you are in the right place if you are ready for a shift and you have a deep desire to transform your life. Okay, so I have something to say, and that is, this type of work specifically, it's not for the faint of heart. This is deep, intense work, and I'm just so excited for you, and I'm so happy that you are taking this step. And I know that you are courageous for taking the step and for being here, because I know firsthand experience that this is not like super fun work. It will get there, it can be fun at times, right? Because we're working with the inner child, we're working with parenting, and it can be super fun, but there are some times where we're going to have to look at and sit with some pain and some wounding, and that is difficult work. So just thank you for being here. I'm so in awe of you for taking this, for being here. So let's get to the heart of the issue that we're going to talk about today. So the real issue that we're talking about when it comes to conscious parenting is that we often try to solve the parenting woes and the parenting difficulties by focusing on hacks or tips and tricks around the child's behaviors. And a very kind of a little bit more unpopular answer, which is what I'm going to be talking about today, is that true healing and family harmony, it starts with you and you the parent, and your inner child, and about how you are going to choose how to be in the family and in the parent-child relationship. So my goal for this workshop is to have you walk away with the tools, the knowledge, and the confidence to begin your conscious parenting journey as soon as we are finished here today. And so a little bit about me, your guide. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for being here with me. I am Rebekah Rose Wall. I am the founder of Zero to Zen Coaching. My background is in social work and sociology. I use NLP, human design, hypnosis, EFT, and I have 2 certifications as a life coach. And coaching is absolutely my passion. It's what I've been doing since I was probably 5 years old. I just never had any language around it. And then when I found it and I started working with coaches, I knew that this is what I wanted to dedicate my life to, because coaching is what really helped me transform my life. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this work. And so I know we don't have a ton of time today, so I'm not going to give you, my whole story, but I want to just share with you a little bit about my personal healing journey. So I grew up in I'm the youngest of 4 children. I'm the only girl. I have 3 older brothers, and I grew up in a very religious, controlling environment, and there really was a lot of silence in the home. A lot of, and what I mean by silence is that there wasn't a safe container to truly express my emotions or to even talk about the things that were coming up in my life. And there were certain things that I was allowed to talk about with one parent, and certain things I wasn't allowed to talk with other parents, with my other parent. And so it was it really created a lot of my growth was very stunted. My emotional growth was very stunted. And part of that parent-child relationship that I experienced growing up led into a lot of difficulty in my teenage years, a lot of escapism. I grew dependent on alcohol. I used substances, and I was really just trying to escape myself and my reality. And it was extremely painful. My life was really spiraling out of control. And then at 18, I experienced an assault that really rocked my world, as you can imagine. And it really was the time where I hit rock bottom. And I knew that I needed help. And growing up in the culture that I did, we really didn't talk about therapy. That wasn't something that we went to. If we needed help, we went to the pastor. Not go to therapists. That was not a thing. And so I started, on this healing journey. I started working with people, working with mentors, and I really worked with people, though, mostly through books and not necessarily one-on-one, because that wasn't something that I knew how to do, and it wasn't accessible to me at that time. I didn't know how to reach out to a coach. And so my healing journey was very lonely at times. It was very trial and error. I had to find a lot of things on my own. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate today, because I never want anybody to feel alone like I did. And I never want people to have to feel like they have to try all these things. I want to be a mentor, and I want to be a coach, and I want to be a guide to people. And that's what I'm so passionate about. And I love working. This is the work that it lights me up, as I'm sure you can see. It's really the best thing in my life. And so now I have a beautiful family. I have an incredible life. I'm grounded, I'm peaceful, I'm responsive, and I'm sober. And so I really truly feel that it's been an incredible healing journey. And if I can do it, then I know it's 100% possible for you too. Okay, so let's jump in. So what is conscious parenting? So conscious parenting is a new paradigm. It's a new model of parenting that focuses on the relationship between the parent and the child. So unlike the older models that are really heavily based in either focusing on the parent or focusing on the child, this now focuses on the relationship. That's the client. That's that's what we're working with. It's the relationship between them, and it's also the relationship in the family. And it's about bringing awareness, right? Consciousness is all about bringing awareness. It's to our patterns, to our woundings, to the developmental stages that maybe we weren't able to fully develop because of whatever reason. And it's also bringing awareness to how we were parented and how that relationship is now influencing our current parenting style. And it's about serving the relationship, like I was saying, rather than meeting the needs of just one person at the expense of the other. So for example, the parent who's really burnt out because, they're busy working, trying to, give their child all of the things that they maybe never had, or all of that kind of stuff, but they are tired, they're exhausted, and they're not taking care of themselves, which makes them reactive, it makes them short, and it's not really serving the relationship, right? And so why is it important? Why is conscious parenting important? Why is this paradigm of parenting so important as opposed to maybe some of the other ones that we talked about? So when we model this type of relationship to our children, we are showing them how to have relationships that honor themselves and others equally. So we've heard this old paradigm, which is all about you hurt the ones you love the most, right? And so we're with this new paradigm of parenting, we're throwing that out and we're saying, you know what? The people that I love the most, I'm going to treat them with compassion. I'm going to treat them with respect, with loving kindness and with equality in our relationships. And it's about giving us the gift of healing our wounds to be free from the past that holds us back from living with all the things that we want, with peace, authenticity, and connectedness. And so this is something that I love talking about with my clients, because this is what I was talking about in the very beginning, where especially this type of work, it's not always easy, right? It's uncomfortable, especially looking at our pain. But when we hear a lot about the authentic self, but what we don't necessarily hear a lot of is that our pain is part of our authentic self, our wounding, all of that stuff. So that when we push that down, all of that unresolved emotion, all of the unresolved emotions, maybe it's hurt, maybe it's anger, maybe it's frustration, maybe it's sadness, whatever it is, when we push that down, we're not allowing ourselves to truly be our authentic selves and express from that place. And it keeps us from living in the fullest expression of who we are. And so that's another reason why it's so important. And when we do that, we are modeling that for our children. So when we live our lives in an emotionally whole way, then that is what translates to the children, because children, they're receiving everything from an energetic standpoint. And so when they see that and they feel that energetically, that's what they are going to then recognize as the way to then live their lives. And so what does it allow us to do? It creates a safe haven for everybody to feel and express their emotions and process what they're going through. It also creates a safe place for everybody to express their needs, regardless of the fact that, maybe the needs can't necessarily be met at that moment. But that's okay, right? It's allowing everybody to express their needs, to express their feelings, and so that we can all process it together as a family. And that means the parents and the children both. It creates support within the relationship for everybody, and it creates freedom within structure. There is structure within the conscious parenting paradigm, but it's giving the children the freedom of expression, the freedom to not only express themselves creatively, but to also express their needs, their feelings, in a safe way that they feel validated and they feel heard. And that also translates to you and your inner child as well. So everybody, it's a very holistic wraparound approach to parenting. And so how do we begin this journey, right? So it sounds great, but what do we do to get started? So by healing our own inner child, we get to the root of what's causing the tension, the reactiveness, the anger, the frustration in our lives, or what's at the root of our blocks, right? That stuck energy. And so when we know how to be, we know how to act. And so conscious parenting and healing our inner child, it's really more about the being versus the doing, where the doing is much more those old parenting paradigms. And what I teach in my program, my coaching program, is all about a combination between the being and the doing, because sometimes we need to know how to act in the meantime while we're learning how to be, right? So it's a combination of the two. And so when we are acting from a place of being healed and whole, that's going to naturally translate to our children. So we don't really have to put so much effort necessarily in the doing part, because we're going to know how to do that once we integrate the being, how to be a conscious parent, how to be filled with peace, how to be filled with joy, how to be intentional, all of those things. And so the first place is about bringing the awareness to our wounds and areas where we weren't able to fully express ourselves or our emotions, and honor what comes up. This is all about the being in the feelings, being in the experience of it. And it's painful, but it is so much more painful to continue living in the suffering loop that is causing these patterns and causing us to be reactive than to just sit and go to the heart and go to the root of it. Okay, so let's really quickly just talk about conscious versus unconscious. So consciousness is all about it's a state of being aware of what's going on inside of you and what's maybe an outside what's going on in your external world as well. So it's a combination of both. And so this is something that we work on in the conscious parenting paradigm. It's about bringing the unconscious forward to a state of consciousness so that we can look at it and then heal it, right? And so there's a lot of different ways that we can do that, and I'll get into a few in a minute here. But the subconscious, just so you have a little bit of an understanding, and maybe you already do, but this is just a refresher, the subconscious resistance and very uncomfortable to bring the unconscious to consciousness and to bring it forward. And so there are ways that we can train our nervous system to make sure that our body feels safe, that we feel safe to bring those memories or bring the unconscious forward to look at it and heal it. So let's move on. This is the Zen 10 practices. This is the practices that are really rooted in my work, and these are what I teach, and I want to go into depth with these. So these are definitely recommend taking notes on if you haven't started taking notes already, because these are really the combination between the doing and the action. So the very first one is non-attachment to an outcome. Oftentimes when we have an overly attached grip on what we want as a result of the relationship, whether it's from ourselves, like something that we want ourselves to get to, or something between, us and our child. That's where the reactiveness can come into play, because we want so badly to get to the birthday party or to get to the checkout line, or just, it's like, if you could just calm down and I could get to where it is that I need to go. And so, I know that there's a certain amount of, practicality, like we have to get certain things done, but if we can just take a moment to release attachment to whatever it is that we're trying to gain or the outcome, and just pause and say, okay, what's going on, so that I can, can release that and maybe just recalibrate, right? So maybe it's not the end of the world that we don't go to the birthday party. What's most important for the relationship between my child and I is to maybe postpone and not go out today, right? But we often become so attached to that outcome. So the next one is staying rooted in love, and this is something that I love to work with, especially with my parents with teenagers, because it can be really difficult when your teenagers are triggering you to stay rooted in love for them. But stay rooted in love, stay committed to love. So when you are in maybe an area that's or a time that's you're being triggered, or you're just frustrated, or any of those things with your child or with your spouse, come back to that feeling of love for them. Come back to your feeling of love for the family and say, how committed can I stay to love, that everything that comes out of my mouth, everything that comes out of my body, my expression, my physical expression of communication is filled with love, so that the person on the other end doesn't feel guilt. They don't feel shame. They don't feel judged. And when you do that, that little shift alone can make a huge difference. And not only about staying rooted in love or committed to love to the other person, but staying committed to love to yourself as well. That's so, so, so important. Because oftentimes when we are being reactive, it's not coming from a place of self-love. It's coming from a place of being triggered because our inner child has been wounded, and it's acting out from that place of being wounded. The third one is pause and breathe. So this is something, it takes less than 10 seconds to just take a step back, take a pause, and take a deep breath. And when you can do that, when you can kind of integrate that into your life, that can stop you from being reactive in an instant. And I also want to talk about co-regulating the nervous system. So when your child or your spouse, or whatever it is that external thing is creating your nervous system to kind of go into that fight or flight mode, you can co-regulate yours and their nervous system by just pausing, taking some deep breaths. So when you start to take a couple deep breaths, they are going to naturally, it's actually pretty incredible, they naturally will start to calm down and take deep breaths as well. And so and vice versa, when they're starting to act up and be all angsty and their nervous system is getting getting really highly stimulated, your nervous system is going to get highly stimulated. But if you can be the one to take control of that and breathe and calm and use that technique to calm them down, then you're going to be so much more intentional. And you're going to help diffuse that situation. So intentional dialogue. So our words only create 7% of communication. So making sure that you are being open with your body language, your tone is soft and full of compassion. You're using techniques such as reframing or reflective listening. I love motivational interviewing as well. And you don't even have to really, I know sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but if you just go to YouTube, spend 20 minutes just looking at a few of these different techniques, it's so important, and it's going to help your communication 1,000 times if you just learn a couple of these ways to diffuse and get to the heart of what's going on between you and your other family members. Practicing self-acceptance, releasing guilt, and self-criticism. So something that we say in NLP is, which is neuro-linguistic programming, is that there's no failure, only feedback. And as a parent, it can feel like oftentimes we're failing, or that we did something wrong, or, you've got that self-criticism, like, I'm just so tired, and you feel oftentimes there's so much pressure from that external world. But just recognizing that there's no failure, only feedback. What did I learn from this situation? We're just reframing it, right? We're reframing it to be a positive experience. Okay, I don't want to do that, so how do I change that in the future? Rather than self-flagellation and beating yourself up, being critical of yourself, because again, energetically, our family members pick that up, right? If we aren't accepting ourselves, if we are guilt tripping ourselves, if we're being critical of ourselves, we're modeling that energetically to our family members. And so some of the things that I like to work with my clients is EFT, which is emotional freedom techniques. This is tapping. Also, it's called tapping. This is something that I love working with, especially with small children, because it is so powerful to helping them learn to express their emotions. And I love working with my parents or the individuals that I work with, because it helps them get to the root in a way that's very calming for the nervous system, to get to the root of the issue. And then mirror work is another great way of learning to accept not only self-acceptance, but just radical acceptance of what's happening within your family. Oftentimes, there's so much happening that's out of our control, but if we can just accept it rather than fight against it, then we're already taking a huge step forward. Okay. Number 6, focus on understanding you and them. So when something does come up, whether it's a trigger or even a positive experience that's happening, well, why is this making me feel this way? Like, just lots of self-inquiry. How is my child feeling? If they are all of a sudden acting out and they're being rude to me, or they're being mean to their brother or sister or their friend, where is that coming from? Instead of just automatically being like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you just did that. That's so naughty. You're acting out. Go to timeout. Instead of immediately reacting in that way, what's going on? Hey, why did that happen? How are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? Checking in with them constantly. And then for yourself, asking, why did they do that? Getting really curious with your family. What do I want to teach them in this moment? And then how can I teach them in a way that they are going to be receptive, right? Number 7 is consent modeling. So consent modeling is a really big one for me, because I feel that this is so important to model in the home, for not only making sure that your children have agency in their lives, autonomy, but also so that they are raised in a culture of consent, so that when they then start interacting with other children, they already understand consent from a very young age. And so this is something that can be done with just reframing something such as, if somebody comes over, dictating how they react. So saying, oh, give so-and-so a hug goodbye, saying, do you want to give so-and-so a hug goodbye? It's such a subtle difference. But again, you're giving the child the choice to make sure that they're checking in with their body and feeling safe in that moment, to do that. And also saying, is it okay for me to give you a hug goodbye? It sounds maybe over the top sometimes, but this is such an important way of modeling not only how they feel with each other's bodies, but also you can do this with conversation, right? Instead of just saying, you made me feel this way, da 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 da, just dumping it on somebody, you can say, hey, some things came up today for me and it made me feel a certain way. And is it okay for me to express are you feeling like it's okay, safe and appropriate for me to express myself to you right now? And you can do that with you and your children. You can teach your child to do that with you and your spouse. Just again, you're just taking that extra moment to check in with them and have them check in with their body and their nervous system to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And when you do that, it immediately diffuses any defensiveness, because you're approaching it from a place of, hey, I want to talk about this intentionally, rather than just lashing into somebody or just expressing yourself. Number 8 is demystify and normalize the volume of silence. So this is something that's, I think, so important for us to do as parents, and that is to demystify things. So if you, Brené Brown talked about this on her podcast the other day, and it's so important to do, and you can definitely go check that out if you want to learn more about it. Demystifying things. So, for girls, understanding what's happening with your body, talk about it with your girls, talk about, things like what's going on in current events, talk about racism, talk about being body positive, talk about bullying, talk about, all the things that are uncomfortable that you kind of want to shy away from. I have so many parents that say, I don't want them to, what do they say? It's like, I don't want them to lose their innocence, or like, I want them to just stay in this bubble for a little bit longer. Like, the world is so harsh and cruel. But when you don't talk about these things with your children, you're letting them know that your family doesn't talk about these things. And so when questions come up for them, because they are out in the world and they are seeing what's happening, they're listening, children are so intuitive, they're such sponges, they're not going to know who to talk to about it. And they might just push it down, or they might talk to somebody else. And then you miss the opportunity to talk to them and let them know what the family culture is. And then normalize these things. What is happening with your body? You know what? That's totally normal. And that happened to me too. And, this is how we work with it. And these are the tools that we have to help us, I know growing up, I had all these questions about my body that I wasn't able to express or talk to anybody about. And so I thought that I was really abnormal. And that really affected my self-esteem and my, growing up and having a positive body image. And then the next one is creating a family culture of talking about triggers, patterns, and fears. So this is something that I highly, highly recommend for my parents to do, which is to gather everybody around in like a talking circle, maybe once a week, maybe a couple times a month, whatever feels appropriate for you and your family, and talk about things that came up. Say, hey, remember this week when we got into that tiff? And, that really triggered me because I recognize that there's something inside of me that feels like you don't listen to me, or, whatever it is. And then you're creating an atmosphere, you're creating a safe container for everybody to express themselves. And then you can also say, hey, was there anything that, mom or dad did this week to make you feel weird or make you feel uncomfortable? And like, let's talk about those feelings that came up. I'm noticing that we butt heads a lot when it comes to you getting out of bed in the morning. So like, let's talk about that. Why is that happening? So you're creating a consistent, that's what the big thing here is. You're creating a consistent space for your family to talk about things in a way that's non-judgmental. Nobody's like, you're not necessarily dealing with a specific issue. It's not like, okay, we need to have a family meeting and talk about this issue. You just have a consistent time where you all check in with each other and you talk about things. You talk about the fears that are coming up. This is a great thing for teenagers. If you've already created that culture, you can talk about, hey, I'm really worried. I'm really feeling afraid that you're making choices that, that I don't know how I feel about them. It makes me afraid. And that's why I feel like I'm acting out in this way, right? Okay, and then taking personal responsibility, number 10. This is one that I find to be so important, and yet it's not something that we necessarily talk about all that often. At least I don't necessarily see it talked about that often. And that's why this summit is so beautiful, because it's all about empowerment. And that's what personal responsibility is. It is empowering, because now you have the choice to take your healing into your own hands. You no longer have to stay stuck in that loop of suffering, or that loop of fear, or that loop of triggering, or whatever it is that's holding you back. You now have the autonomy and the choice to take your healing, and take it into your own hands, and to really to move forward in a way that is just, you're saying, I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. I'm going to break free of my past, and I'm going to move forward. And that takes so much courage. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing this work, because when people make that choice of taking responsibility instead of blaming external sources, there are so many things that we can blame it on. We have COVID right now. We have, parents who maybe they did their best job that they could, but maybe there was a lot of things that they didn't do right, or didn't do well, or didn't give the space for growing up. We can blame it on so many external things. Maybe some of us have lost our jobs. There's so much that we can blame what's going on inside of us on an external source. But until we say, you know what, it's about me, and there's no external answer to an inside problem. And I am going to now take control of my journey and choose to move forward in a way that breaks the patterns. And I'm no longer going to stay in this comfort zone. I'm willing to break free. And so that's really what the personal responsibility is about. And then the beautiful thing is that when you take personal responsibility for your own life, then your children are going to do the same, because they see it in you. They see you doing it. And so then that's just going to naturally translate onto them. Okay, so now I want you to take this knowledge that you've learned and turn it into action. So go ahead and take either a screenshot or write these prompts down. And it's, what are the things and activities of a conscious parent? What do they do? How do they act? What are they being? What's the being part of it? And just take a minute or so and just journal out, 5 to 10 things that come to mind about what are the things that you as a conscious parent want to integrate into your life. And then the next one is, what are the values, beliefs, and decisions of a conscious parent? And you can either do this now, or you can. I want to make sure that there's plenty of time for questions at the end of this. So if you want to make sure that you write these down, because I want to make sure that you are revisiting these at least every week. Revisit them, see if things are changing, see if things are shifting, see if you are living in alignment with the things and activities of a conscious parent. Are you loosening up your grip on control, on being attached to an outcome? Are you upholding your values and beliefs as a conscious parent? And then I just have to say, even if you just do one thing, if you incorporate and integrate one thing from this talk into your life, that is already a huge win. And I want you to celebrate yourself. Just being here and taking in this knowledge is a huge win. So make sure you are taking the time to celebrate yourself, say cheers to you and your inner child, give them a hug, your inner child a hug, and say, we are doing this. We are making this step forward. We are making progress, and it's just so beautiful. So make sure you have these prompts down, revisit them. They might evolve and change over time, but make sure you're checking in with them, checking in with these questions, and with what your answers as well. Okay, and then this is just how to keep in touch with me. My Instagram is @Rebekah Rose Wall. And if you have any questions that pop up later on as you're maybe looking at your notes, please reach out to me if you want an application, if you want resources. I'm most active on Instagram. I hold a lot of classes there, and I share a lot on there. So definitely, that's a great place to learn, continue to learn if you are interested in this topic and learning more. And then now I would love to just take a little bit of time for Q&A. If anybody has any questions that pop up, I went through this a little bit quickly because I knew we didn't have a ton of time. So I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time as they are going throughout the day today. It's so dry here in Reno. Sorry, I had to take a couple of sips. Yes, the nervous system. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, everybody, it's just if you can take that one thing, if you can just soften a little bit, like notice your body, notice if your body is starting to tense up. And if you can just consciously release the shoulders, relax the body, then that's amazing. Like celebrate that because this is a journey. This isn't immediate. This is a process. It takes time. And so it's really making sure that again, going back to like that self-acceptance, all of that, we don't want to it can be easy to feel like we're a failure or feel like we aren't getting to where we want to go. And so just making sure that we're celebrating the very small tips and what's happening. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not letting me see the Q&A. I'm going to maybe stop sharing at this point. Oh, can you give an example of an answer for the journaling exercise for a family with young children? Yes, absolutely. Okay, let me just pull that up again. Okay, so the types of activities and so let me just look at the very first one. So activities and things that a conscious parent would do with young children. So for example, you might say pausing and breathing is something that a conscious parent does. A conscious parent is creating intentional dialogue with their children. They just even incorporating some of those Zen 10s. They are working on themselves and working on their own healing journey and focusing on understanding their children. They are intentionally always looking to gain more knowledge around being a conscious parent, things like that, like things that are simple but doable as well. So it doesn't have to be anything that's super specific because again, we're working on the being, and when you know how to be, you know how to act. So it could be something like, a conscious parent takes care of themselves and they incorporate self-care as a part of the family integration. So something that we all do together. We all are talking about self-care and how we can integrate self-care as a family. So things like that. It doesn't have to be anything overly complicated. And then the next one was, the other one was, I'm like, I don't have it in front of me now. It left. But I'm just going to pull it back up. So the other one was, what are the values, beliefs, and decisions of a conscious parent? So for that, I would say the values are, we are a body conscious family. We don't say names. We don't call each other names. We choose to talk out how we're feeling instead of jumping to conclusions. We don't insinuate or assume. We always ask before we assume. Those are some of the values. Okay, what's the next question? Do you think it's important that we know the source or reason why we do the things we do? Because sometimes it's not clear. Is this essential in overcoming our reactions? Oh, yes. Yes, I do. I really do. I think that's really what conscious parenting is all about. It's really getting to, and that's why I said this is not for the faint of heart, because it is deep work. And understanding why we do what we do is about bringing the subconscious or the unconscious forward into the conscious. And that's what I was saying too about making sure that we are, I can't do video. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. When we are just acting from a place of being unconscious, we aren't being our authentic selves. We aren't expressing from a place of authenticity. We're acting from a place of being unconscious. And when we act from a place of being unconscious, then we often are continuing these cycles of wounding or cycles of even if it's just, it doesn't even have to be wounding necessarily. It could just be unhealthy habits. We're continuing that, we're showing that. And even something as simple as self-sacrifice. Like, I know for me, like, I do not want the children in my life to go into their relationships putting themselves on the back burner. I want them to make sure that they're giving themselves what they need and taking care of themselves in a holistic way. Okay, good, I did that. So I do think it's essential for overcoming your reactions. And so some of the things that you can do is just, again, pause, breathe, get curious, ask yourself. You can even ask your subconscious to say, I don't know why I'm acting this way, but subconscious, please show me. And then just wait, give yourself patience. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Give yourself time, relax the nervous system, meditate. Tapping is such a wonderful resource. You can look it up online. It's something that I teach as well. But there are so many ways, and it's all about getting rooted in self-acceptance. So it's like, even though I don't know why I'm feeling this way, I truly love and accept myself. And it helps you get into a state where you can really understand what's going on. And so some of the other things that I use are hypnosis, NLP. They're great ways for checking in with the subconscious so that you can bring those, whatever it is that's blocking you forward, so that you can say, oh, that's why I'm reacting this way. Because, hey, way back, I had this one moment with my teacher in second grade, and they made me feel this way. They made me feel shame. And now I'm translating that into my adult life. And now I feel shame in expressing myself. And that's why I'm having this reaction. And so it's really, it's such a beautiful thing to get to the heart of it. And it can be painful and it can be difficult, and it can be tricky, but that's why, it's so wonderful to work with somebody who knows how to help you get to the root of it, because you're not alone. Don't think that you're alone in this journey. There's so many people, and myself included, that are here to help and guide you to get to the root of those issues and to help you move forward with your life so that you can really embody that authenticity, that embodied being that you are, this beautiful divine being, that you are as a parent. Okay, does anybody have, those are great questions. Thank you so much for those. Those are so wonderful. It's so great to, ask for clarification. Thank you so much for feeling like this is a place that you could ask those questions. Okay. I answered that one. Is any last questions? And if not, thank you again all so much for being here. It's such an honor to be part of this, part of Guidely and part of this summit. And I'm just so grateful for Guidely and for you all, because I always say, I can't do this work without you. And you being here, you being part of this summit and staying here and listening to me and listening to this talk, it allows me to do the work that I love. And so I say that I'm grateful every single day for you. I'm so thankful that you're here, that you took this courageous step forward. If you have any questions that come up, throughout the day or, throughout the week, please send me a message. I'm always happy to talk with you and answer any questions that you have. I am a resource for you. So please use that. And I hope that you all have just the most wonderful rest of your day. I hope that you have lots of beautiful panelists that you're going to go see. And I'm excited for you to be part of this summit and to be part of this experience with all these other guides. Thank you, Nadra. Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, everybody.